Hello, welcome to another edition of the Talking Basketball podcast. I am Mark.
I am Paul. Hello.
Hello, and we have got a guest on the line today, Paul.
Mark, I said it. I've said this before. I am nervous. We are talking to an absolute legend today.
Basketball royalty.
Yeah, and what I will say, let's just get into
Just
it
go straight
without any ado whatsoever. Yeah, now stand and cheer for one of your greatest of all time sport announcers, Paul Porter.
Wow.
Paul, welcome to the show.
Wow, that's impressive.
Wow, Paul, I appreciate that. Coming from you, that's amazing. Thank you. But look, all I'm doing is copying you, if I'm being completely honest. But before we start, can I just say, and I would never forgive myself if I had this opportunity to speak with you and didn't say it, that you are arguably one of the greatest sport announcers to ever have lived. I study and copy you, and you're definitely one of my inspirations, and you've contributed and changed, I believe, part of the sporting world as we see and we hear it.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's been a long run. I've been going for 36 years with the Orlando Magic and 32 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and also about 10 years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wow, absolutely incredible.
So how do you become a sports announcer? We obviously have heard you through the decades, but where does it start from your perspective? Where does your career as an announcer start?
Well, actually, my career started back in 1976. I was out of college, got a job in Lorain, Ohio, which is quite a ways north of here, and worked there for a year and a half doing news sports, and then had the opportunity to move to Cleveland and met a guy by the name of Ted Stepien. And he was the owner at the time of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he hired me in 1980 to do my public address announcing there. And then I did 2 years of radio after that, from 81 to 83. And then a new owner came in and totally cleaned house and even fired the team doctor and the organist. That's how much they cleaned house. And I had known Pat Williams from my days with Cleveland while he was with Philadelphia. And when he was able to get the Orlando Magic franchise, he contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in being their public address announcer. And I said I absolutely would. And I took the job, and it's been a run ever since then. That was 36 years ago that happened, and still at it.
That's unbelievable.
I can't. You know what? I've heard Paul so much throughout the years. It's just
Surreal, isn't it?
It's really surreal
Very
actually
surreal.
listening to him talk.
So, Paul, obviously, you are synonymous with the Magic, but also for NHL fans with the Lightning. Obviously you are local to Tampa itself, so I believe you commute to the Magic games, which is I'm sure quite fun.
Yeah, it's about 200 miles each way, and I'm not sure what that translates into kilometers there in England, but 200 miles each way, about 50 games a year, including preseason, postseason, over 36 years. So if you do the math, it's quite a few miles that I've driven to and from Orlando.
You're familiar with the I-4, I guess, quite well.
And I know every bump in the road, every restaurant, every rest stop, you name it, I know it.
Are there certain milestones or points where you get to a certain bit down the road? I used to travel quite a lot for my work, and there would be a certain point, and it was maybe 10 or 15 miles out, and you think, yeah, I'm home now. I'm there. I'm near this point.
Yeah, that's usually the case every day that I go there, because I go right past Disney World, which of course draws people from all over the world, a number of people from the UK. And once I get past that, then I'm almost in Orlando, and it's about another half hour to go, and I can make it there.
Oh, wow. What happens with scheduling then because NHL is October to April as well, isn't it?
That's a very good question. And because I have not been able to clone myself as of yet, what I do is there's generally anywhere from 8 to 12 conflicts a year, and I split the conflicts up between the Lightning and the Magic. And a lot of people ask me, what is the criteria for which game you do? And I base it on the opponent. Whoever has the more attractive opponent, I do that game. For example, if the Lightning are playing the New York Rangers and the Magic are playing Utah, then I'll do the Lightning game. But if the Magic are playing the Lakers and the Lightning are playing the Carolina Hurricanes, then I'll do the Magic game.
Wow.
It's amazing that you actually have that as an option to go, these are the games I'll do. Let's face it, you do probably get one of the greatest seats in the house at the Magic.
Oh, yeah, without question.
Well, absolutely. With the Magic, I do. It used to be with the Lightning that I was right on the ice at center ice. But when COVID came, the league made the decision league-wide to move everybody off the ice and up into the concourse area.
Oh.
So I don't have as good a seat as I used to prior to COVID in the NHL. But the press box, the Buccaneers, I'm right on the goal line. As far as the Magic, of course, right at center court.
So you're still in the press box for the Buccaneers as well?
Yes. In my 10th year with the Buccaneers.
You're a busy man.
And I
Paul.
know there's a lot of Buccaneer fans in England. We've been there 3 times now, and last year we had the chance to go to Germany to play in the international. So I'm familiar with Europe. Love England. Love visiting over there. Enjoy the Thames River and the red buses and all of that. I enjoy the hop on, hop off. I tour all around London.
Well, it's when we certainly enjoy going to Orlando and sunshine and heat, the 2 things we don't have here. But when you're playing,
you can't say heat. That's the other thing.
Well, yeah, I was about to say. I want to say leads nicely to the question I had really. What is it about Florida with so many sports teams? Because it does seem to be quite a prolific area where you think, you've got Jacksonville.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way.
No.
The Miami Dolphins were really the first major sports team to call Florida home. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came along. And then before you know it, we had the NBA first with the Magic and the Heat. Then the National Hockey League found that Florida was a good place to go. And it really is, because it's a chance for people that are in the cold weather up north in New York or Boston or Chicago or Detroit. They can come down and plan a vacation around their team playing in Florida. And it does wonders for the Florida economy as they come in, stay in hotels, eat in restaurants, rent cars. It brings a lot of money into the state of Florida. And then many people package it with a trip to Disney or Universal Studios and do a whole vacation.
Oh, it's an essential part of a vacation, isn't it? Absolutely. Paul took his family along, didn't you?
Yeah, I was there about 7 weeks ago, and obviously go Disney parks and all that. But as part of it is going to the Orlando Magic for sure. I mean, just thinking about that, Paul, is you've had decades of watching amazing talent right in front of you, and you get that view better than anyone else probably. It's up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, over that time period, is there anything that really stands out for you as far as maybe a player or a coach or a magic moment?
Well, I think the player would certainly be Shaquille O'Neal. He was the best player the Magic have ever had in their history, in my opinion. And a very personable guy, extremely intelligent. If you were going to talk to him, you better know what you're talking about, because he could spot an imposter in a moment.
Oh,
and
okay.
It wasn't such a pleasant conversation then. But I got to know Shaq over the years, and I certainly still keep in contact with him and value his friendship. He would be the one guy that stood out for me as far as the Magic are concerned.
Oh, wow. So, like, so you generally are building relationships with these guys in the organization?
Absolutely. Ben Bishop, who was a goaltender for the Lightning for a long time, he and I are still in touch, and we still text back and forth, and
wow.
we keep in touch with each other. And he's come back to Tampa for a few times for an alumni game or a reunion or that sort of thing, and I always keep in touch with him. And then, ironically, a member of the Buccaneers, William Golston, who's one of their defensive linemen, I actually moved into the property that he was living in after he moved out, and I continued to get his mail for about 3 years. So I would bring his mail to him at the Buccaneers game, and he would get a kick out of that, and he and I became friends.
So
there's not many people who can say, yeah, I'm friends with these guys.
So what happened? I won't say staying professional, of course, but when you have a persona, let's say like Shaq, for example, and they leave and then come back to play against the Magic, is that challenging as an announcer when you have these big personas who were part of the establishment and you built up friendships and relationship with, and now they're on the opposing team? Does that present challenges?
It absolutely is. I kind of silently root for them to have a good game, but I still want the Magic or the Lightning or the Bucks to win the game. So, like when Ben Bishop came back after he was traded to Dallas,
yep.
I told him, I said, Ben, I wish you the best of luck, but I hope we win 1-0. And he just kind of laughed at that, and they understand because they know it's a business, and they know it's a business for myself as well, and that I have the allegiance to the team that I'm working for.
I mean, and that's a tenure and a half that you've had as an allegiance, really, 3 decades plus with a team. No players can do that. Barely any people in organizations can do that. That's a pretty special relationship.
Yeah, that's very true. For the Magic, for example, there's only 3 of us that are still there that were there in year 1.
Oh, wow.
So it's been quite a run. And in fact, the other night it was fun. One of the Magic dancers, which is now a hip hop group, it's no longer the young ladies dancing, but she came up to me and she said, "Mr. Porter, I just wanted to tell you that my grandmother was one of the Magic dancers in year 1, and she still talks about you." And I said, "Well, you're making me feel really old. I'm still here in the same chair that I was in when your grandmother was dancing.
Wow.
You're like, thanks, but thanks for that. But at the same time, yeah.
So how has that PA role as a PA announcer, how's that evolved sort of over the years? From inception, as you say, you were there year one. How have you found that?
Well, can I also add to that is Paul was one of the trailblazers, is how I'd say it, of how to announce as well. So
agree.
Just to add to that, Paul, how did you start changing the announcing?
Well, that's something that if I had to point to one thing in my career that I am the most proud of, you just named it. And that is that I was the one who initially started drawing out the names at the end. Shaquille O'Neal.
That's amazing.
Dennis Scott. And it's been now imitated for 36 years plus. And long after I'm gone and feet under, I think it'll still be alive and well. So that is really my mark on the sports industry, because it's not only happening in basketball, it also happens in baseball and football and hockey, all of the major sports. So I think even some soccer people, football for you over in the United Kingdom, would call it that way as well. So it's kind of neat to think that I was the one who started all that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, an absolute innovator in that, I guess, field, in that industry. But like, even till now, I mean, for those of us who really copy you, even now you still are changing up. So, for example, I've heard you say initially you'd go 3 if someone hit a 3, and you're now adding. When I was there in October, I heard you add an extra. I mean, I'll go into real detail. This sounds so sad, but an extra syllable where you went 3. So you went down and up rather than going up. And I was like, straight away, I went, I'm nicking that. I'm copying that.
Well, you always want to change things up a little bit. When Dennis Scott was there, he was a master 3-point shooter, and I came up with 3D, and he got a big kick out of that, and he actually incorporated that as a nickname for himself. And they asked him where it came from, and he gave me credit for it. He said Paul Porter, back with the Orlando Magic, was the guy that came up with 3D.
That's amazing.
That's brilliant.
I also, one of my favorite ones that you do, and I'm very confident you made this up as well. And I also heard an interview where Steve Kerr brought this up, which is when someone travels, and you do that. As soon as a traveling call gets called, you go traveling. And I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Some people focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah, they do, and you're right about Steve Kerr. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He was only with the Magic for a very short period of time, but he and I have become friends over the years. And every time that he comes to town with Golden State, he says he tells Steph Curry, "You can do anything out there, but please don't travel, because I don't want to hear that." And so I know that every time it happens, he looks at me and I look at him, and we both smile. But that is one of my favorite things to do. And another favorite is if a player travels right after they scored a basket or right before they score a basket, I love to say, "It doesn't count, traveling."
Oh, that's brilliant. See, in the UK, as far as announcing, there's a bit of restriction on, I don't know how to phrase this, but upsetting the opposition. Yeah. There's a little bit of that, where you've got absolute no hold bars in America, or that's how it feels like.
Yes. In fact, when I was in London, we played the Toronto Raptors, Magic did, and a lot of the people were kind of taken back at my poking fun of the visiting team. One of the ones that I use on a regular basis when an opposing player steps out of bounds, I will say, "On the line, magic ball."
I'm just writing these all
And
down.
some people were really surprised.
I mean, the game itself has changed so much, especially since the Magic's inception. Going through, lots of those eras. Obviously, you've had like the Magic themselves had like the Shaq and Penny era, kind of very much define that 90s athleticism, the physicality of the game. And we've now moved into maybe a faster paced game with a lot more outside shooting, for example. How does that affect?
Yeah.
How does that affect your announcing style?
It is faster paced, that's for sure. In fact, I work probably 5 times harder at Magic games than I do at Lightning games or Bucks games. Simply because the game is so fast. I'm saying something every 15 to 20 seconds, where with the Lightning, I might be 7-8 minutes in between announcements. The Buccaneers are certainly once every minute or so. So it's a lot harder. It's a lot more difficult. I'll tell you the one thing that I don't like, though, about what the game has evolved to is the excessive amount of three-point shooting. I would like to see more passing and more working the ball inside, relying on points in the paint, as opposed to coming down and so many players attempting a three-point shot. To have 30 or 40 three-point shot attempts in a game is not uncommon.
Yeah, I think the record was set this week. It was Chicago versus Charlotte, and I think it was 73
or 75 three-point attempts. Yeah.
In a game. I know there was I actually listened to another podcast, and they were talking about potentially expanding the three to remove the baseline three-point shot.
Yeah. Not a fan of that.
Yeah, that's. I would like to see that, or I would also maybe like to see coming up with a 4-point shot, where a team that was down 4 and it was a 2-possession game, it would no longer be a 2-possession game if someone could hit a 4-point shot, which would be probably somewhere between the 3-point arc and the half-court line. Have a 4-point shot, which would be a very low percentage shot, but still it would give a team an opportunity to pull the game out if they were down by 4 points, as opposed to it being pretty much out of reach.
Steph Curry would be rubbing his hands, wouldn't he? He'd be thinking, I'm shooting 4 points every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah, he would have no problem with it. He's probably the best in the game at it, that's for sure.
I mean, it was something that you touched on here regarding the way in which people are shooting. We've been to a couple of games. The one that sticks out for me was the Indiana one, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it was I think it was the shortest NBA game. There was no fouls called or anything at any point, and it just
there were fouls called. It was the fastest NBA game in NBA history
played, and we just thought, oh, you're kidding me. And then obviously at the other end of the spectrum, you have games that go into overtime and they're really closely fought. As an announcer, how do you separate yourself when you have a game that's really tense and it's really energized? Is it difficult to stay in
Yes, it's very difficult. In fact, there was a game in 2004 when the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, their first ever Stanley Cup. And the Lightning were ahead 2-0 after 2 periods of Game 7. And then Calgary scored a goal to make it 2-1 midway through the 3rd period. And from that point on, I just couldn't even watch. It was so tense. And then on top of that, the Lightning captain got a penalty with 2 minutes to go in the game, and the Lightning were shorthanded for the final 2 minutes of the Game 7. And every time I would see Calgary take a shot, I would look down because I couldn't bear to watch. And then I would hear the crowd roar, and I know the goaltender stopped it. But it's impossible to not become involved in the game. Even though, as a professional, you have a job to do and you have to keep your head in the game, you have to remember we're all human and you can only do so much.
That's what people love, though. We love hearing the passion.
Yeah, they do. And that's something that I kind of put myself as the voice of the fan. For example, if you were there in October, you noticed that when the other team scored, I would just kind of mumble their name, OG Anunoby, you know.
Yeah, very monotone.
And,
very monotone. Yeah.
I try to be the voice of the fan, and if the fans are unhappy, I try to represent them.
That's actually a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
You got to kind of do the emotion in your voice, how everyone out in the arena, sports or whatever is feeling.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially if you've got some interesting characters in the NBA over the years. Someone like a Reggie Miller turning up must be interesting for the fans.
I mean, you're just thinking that over the
Oh,
years,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
legends you've seen, Paul, like you have seen some of the all-time greatest ever players to have played the game. I mean, and the seat you've seen them, and you're interacting. I mean, do you sometimes pinch yourself and go, "What an amazing career I've got"?
Absolutely. I consider myself one of the luckiest men on earth to be able to do what I've been able to do. And I was able to announce the All-Star game in Orlando back when Magic Johnson was the most valuable player. And this was when he had the AIDS disease. And it was just really something to be able to see that, be a part of that. And to be able to travel to places like London, Prague, Czech Republic, in Germany, 2 games, Canada. It's really been a great ride.
Talking about the games, Paul, I mean, out of curiosity, what is game day like for you?
Well, it depends in part on whether it's a Magic game or a Lightning game, because the Magic game, I have a 3-hour drive to get there, like I do today, for example. So I will try and get a short nap in right after lunch. And then the games generally start at 7. I like to be there by about 5:30. So I will leave the house here at about 2:30 to make the trip over there. For Lightning games, for example, I live 10 minutes from their arena. And it's much easier. I get there at about 5 o'clock, but I don't have to leave before 4:45. So it's much easier that way.
And the preparation, like for example, once you turn up to the Amway arena, like what's at 5:30? What's your preparation? I mean, do you have to prep, or are you like, I'm doing what I always do?
Well, it's a little bit of both. A lot of things stay the same always, but one of the first things I do is check the pronunciation list for the visiting team, because I feel if they've made it to the NBA, they deserve to have their name called properly. So I always want to make sure I have the pronunciations down. Then I will also look through the script that I'm going to be reading that night, because many times there's a presentation or an honor, and I realize that this is a major event, a lifetime event for some of these people that are being honored at center court or center ice or the 50-yard line. And I want to make sure that I do the pronunciation correctly and do the announcement correctly out of respect to them.
That's actually a really genuine, nice way to actually look at it. Someone's earned the stripes, or, there's an event, I'm going to do it right.
Absolutely. And you know, another thing that I really try and be careful with, Mark and Paul, is uh, I sometimes it can be a bit redundant. I've had months where I've had 12 games in 12 days, three different sports, and you can get kind of run down and not feeling well. But I realized that there's going to be somebody at that game that night or that afternoon that's the only game they've ever seen, or maybe the only game they ever go to. So I want to make it as impressive as possible for them. It would be like if you had tickets to a great concert there in London, and you got there, and the understudy was actually there instead of the actual main performer. Uh, it's not a big deal to the performer, but it certainly is to you that have paid an enormous amount of money for a ticket.
I wish more players had that ethos, Paul. I really do. There's not on the Magic necessarily, but there's certain superstars around the league that maybe don't share that same commitment to the fans.
Yeah, it's a nice way to look at it. Paul, can I highlight when I was in Australia, the way they, I mean, I thought it was genius, but the way they introduced the visiting fans, obviously it's very similar to the Magic. And now stand and cheer for your Adelaide 36, and they all come out and all of that. And they do the home team first, and then all the lights come on, and then in a very, like you've mentioned moments before, about a very monotone voice, like voice of the fans, the announcer will say, and the visiting team, the Brisbane Bullets, and that's it.
Okay, yeah, that's similar to what we've done now. In fact, we've cut back on the visiting announcement, where all I say is their position, their number, and then their name. It's very matter of fact. And we do that for a particular reason. We saw it last week where the New York Knicks were in town, and we had to really play it down because there were a lot of New York Knicks fans there. So we didn't want them cheering. So we went through it very quickly. And I even, during my third and fourth quarter break, I said, this is our house, and we need to hear from the Magic fans, because the New York fans were getting very loud. So we kind of put them in their place.
So that's actually something that's considered then in the arena. They'll be saying, obviously, because the Magic is such a, the Orlando areas visited so much by people all around the world, you will get a load of Orlando, I suppose, Boston fans or New York fans or whatever it is. So you guys will tone that down deliberately.
Wow.
Absolutely. We know that, as I mentioned earlier, people come for a vacation. So they're coming in whenever Boston or Chicago or Detroit or New York are there. We get a ton of their fans.
Yeah, I've never really thought of it that way, but that makes perfect sense to keep home court advantage. I mean, do you travel with the have you had to travel much with the team over the years?
No, not really. Largely because it's such a busy schedule. I'll do like 100 games a month. In a season, and it just gets to the point where it's just too busy. So
yeah, that is. I mean, the fact you're doing 3 teams,
tune it down as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you're a busy man as it is. I was thinking that you surely couldn't do that as well.
Paul, can I ask you? Do you have a top Orlando Magic moment? Is there a moment that you've had over the years where or even a top 2, top 3, where you've gone, you've got goosebumps, like this is just amazing just being here? What's that for you?
Well, I think it would be when the Magic were in the NBA Finals, and the Magic were heavy favorites to beat the Houston Rockets, but as it turned out, they ended up losing in 4 games straight. But there was a time in the first game that
Yes.
when the Magic were playing the Houston Rockets, and Nick Anderson was at the free throw line, and the Magic had a 25-point lead that dissipated down to 2 points. And Nick was at the free throw line, and he missed the first one. And I didn't realize that the microphone was on. And I said, Nick, would you please make a free throw? And it went through the whole arena.
Oh, no.
And Nick looked over at me and proceeded to take the second shot and missed that too. And he and I still joke about it to this day. He's still a member of the Magic organization and the community ambassador. And we enjoy reminiscing about things like that.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that. Was that the moment where he got asked to go back to the line? Did he miss one? And they said, you got to go back. So did he miss 3 in a row? Was it?
I think you're thinking.
Yeah, I believe so. It got to be very frustrating for him. And he kind of talked about it and said it just kind of evolved. That once he missed the first one, he started trying too hard and missed the second, and then he missed the third, and then the team was frustrating and getting frustrated, so it kind of all evolved.
Yeah, that was the one where you saw his face drop in after the third shot didn't quite go. And
well, you know what?
Yeah.
When he misses that one of the free throws, I think it might be the first one. He does have this. I want to say there's just like a. I don't want to say the word odd, but there's a smile on his face. And
no, he smiles. Yeah.
now I'm like, hang on, is he hearing the announcement? It must have been that. I never knew that.
But I mean,
they win that.
That was a moment. Yeah.
Do you think if they win game 1, do you think we're looking at a different outcome? Because the Rockets were an old team.
I think that kind of set the tone for the whole series. And they were so shocked that they lost that game. And Houston got a huge charge of confidence after winning that game, that it just kind of got to the point where they'd won the 2 games in Orlando, and then they went back home to Houston and won 2 straight there.
Yeah. And I mean, with the creation of the new the training facility, there's a lot of investment in the Orlando Magic. You know, what do you think is the future bright for Orlando?
Oh, absolutely. I think because of the fact that they are right there as far as tourism is concerned, and teams coming in from all over the world and fans coming in from all over the world, they will always be a very popular franchise.
Definitely. I mean, they've got a very youthful team, and over the years, there's been a few rebuilds, like lots of the teams have had. But aside from the current roster, is there a particular team or era that you thought this I won't say your favorite, but one that you look back and think they would have been the ones? Is that Shaq and Penny?
Gotta be.
Yeah, I think Shaq and Penny were there. Dwight Howard and Tracy McGrady would be up there as well. But I think Shaq and Penny were the greatest duo the Magic have ever had.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a documentary out on, I think it's Disney, about the whole incident. It's a fantastic watch if you've not watched it. But
one Magic Moment, I believe it's called.
One Magic Moment. Okay, but it's I think what I felt about it is that what if Shaq signed? What if the Magic could go back and went, no, we're going to really go for this and make sure Shaq doesn't leave?
What if Grant Hill wasn't injured? when he came from the Pistons. But that would have been Grant Hill and T-Mac. And at that time, if I remember rightly, almost would have been Tim Duncan as well. I believe there was a whispering in the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was
there's so many things that you can look back on and remember. The team has been around now for 36 years, but in many ways it feels like they've only been here for a year, and in other ways it feels like they've been here for 100 years.
Well, not only arguably with the greatest PA announcer, their team, they also have arguably one of the greatest mascots.
Mark, the greatest mascot. The greatest mascot.
Stuff the Dragon. I mean, that in itself.
He's very popular.
Does he interact with you much at all, Paul?
Yeah, he does a great job and extremely athletic.
Oh, some of the things I've seen him do, like you just think death is about to happen.
It's an immediate,
yeah.
Watch this, kids, but don't try it at home.
Definitely don't try it at home. I just love the way that there's with stuff. It's almost, I'd say, a show inside a show. Where, I mean, many times I've been at a Magic game and I've missed an amazing moment in the game because I've been watching stuff. But do you get much interaction with him at all?
Yeah, the fans really get involved with it. They enjoy it. They're there for a good time, and they're having a good time. They want to see the Magic win, but they like to be entertained as well.
Now,
guys, I hate to break in, but I do have to get to another appointment.
That is.
But I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you.
Well, Paul, thank you very much for just gracing us with your presence and just giving us, just a little bit of your time. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Glad to do it.
Paul, would you do us the honor of giving us a shout out and saying, welcome to Talking Basketball Podcast?
What is the name of it again?
Talking Basketball.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for one of the greatest shows in the world. Please welcome Mark Ferguson and Paul Kudlow, the host of Talking Basketball.
That's fantastic. That's it. That
Paul, thank you so
rounds
much.
Off the year. Perfect.
There we go. We can't say anything else. Paul, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And, we really appreciate going to the games and listening to you with all your announcing. And like I said before, we generally consider you one of the greatest sport announcers ever to have lived. And, you're an inspiration to many.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Have a great season and a great day.
All right. Thank you.
There we go.
Paul Porter.
Paul Porter.
That's
one of the greatest ever sport announcers there has ever been.
What a busy schedule.
It was a slight shame. I was writing down his top 5 to end of the show.
I mean, it's going to be Shaq.
Well, I put Shaq because he said
Shaq.
Shaq was his main guy. And then he's going to put Shaq Penny, isn't he?
I can't imagine just being in the situation just at the beginning. It's still stuck with me. He's got a game for Tampa. There might be something going on with the Buccaneers. And then the Magic are playing. He's sitting there thinking, well, which game should I announce? Which game who gets into a position where they're like, I've got these amazing teams and I've got to choose which one I'm going to do. Who am I going to let down today?
Yeah. Well, look, he gave us a lot of time there. He is a very busy man. He has got a busy schedule. And look, not that anyone else knows this, but we did have lots of technical difficulties for like 20 minutes trying to get that call connected. So yeah, he gave us a lot of time there, so we really appreciate that. So we done, Mark.
We are done, and what a way to finish this year. So for those of you who haven't listened to any of our other shows, go back and check them out. We've got 168, 170 shows now, and we're going to keep making more. Thank you so much for tuning to this one with Paul Porter. I have been Mark.
I have been I have been Paul, and we've been listening to Paul Porter, literally one of the greatest announcers in sport of all time.
Fantastic.